Welcome, everybody, to a special National Cancer Survivors Month edition of The New Abnormal. I'm Michael Myers, Executive Vice President of Good Fuse Communications, and I have the pleasure of speaking today with Whitney Segel, the Vice President with Good Fuse, who has quite an extensive background in healthcare communications, specifically on the patient advocacy front. Welcome, Whitney.
Hi, Michael. Thanks. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. As I said, it's National Cancer Survivors Month, and there's a purpose to it in terms of recognizing and truly celebrating uh, the lives and experiences of people who've been diagnosed with cancer. And that's millions of people around the world, obviously. I have my own personal connection. I happen to be a 15-year cancer survivor. I also lost both of my parents to cancer at an early adult age. So I've seen and lived through all sides of that patient and family experience. And one of the things that stuck with me that has affected me deeply throughout my career is an experience I had with my father when he was in his hospital bed, and my mother and I were standing at the end of the bed, and the doctor came in and spoke to us as if my dad wasn't even there. And he was a living, breathing, feeling individual and completely dehumanized in that process. And I quickly walked the doctor out of the room and said, please don't ever do that again. Please, when you're in the room, talk to my father. And he was wide awake and with it, and talk to us, but don't direct things away from him. And that stuck with me. And I think that's something that I've tried to realize, that sensitization to the patient, in this case, particularly the cancer patient, throughout the course of my career in healthcare communications. And I know that you have an extensive background on the professional front, which has obviously affected you personally, but share with us a little bit about what that journey has been like for you.
Yeah, of course. And first of all, thank you so much for sharing your personal connection, your story. It's really meaningful. And I think brings up a really good part of what I do. So, like you mentioned, I spend a lot of my time communicating with people living with cancer, their advocates and their communities, and helping them share their story, finding their voice. And in order to do this, I've sort of learned a few rules of the road, if you will. So when I'm working with these people, I really try to help them, like I said, find their voice and really, you know, help others in the community and share their story in a meaningful way. Because, like you said, they are wide awake, they're living, they're breathing, and they have lessons to share with the community. So first and foremost, when I'm working with people, I try to really establish a genuine relationship with them. So I, again, remember that these people are humans first. There's a story and a person behind the diagnosis that they have faced. And I really try to learn who that person is and make a human to human connection with them. The second is really to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable works both ways. So I am vulnerable myself, and I ask the person that I'm working with to also be vulnerable. So I share my personal connection. You know, I have a personal family connection to cancer, as do many people. And then I ask them to share their story in a vulnerable way. So really asking them to share their raw, human, real story. Maybe the details that are hard to talk about, but also sort of the life lessons that come with living with cancer. So, living in the moment is really a common theme that I've learned from people living with cancer, and also have taken that in my own life. And finally, it's really listening with a purpose. So, listening to each and every detail that a person tells you, it helps you form that real relationship, but it also helps us as communicators understand how each person's story is unique, um, how their connection or their living with cancer is personal. Each cancer experience is different, it's very personal, and that really impacts the way that they perceive information that's given to them. Yeah, so those are sort of my 3 rules of the road.
I love that, Whitney, particularly the whole concept of listening with purpose. And I do think we have a higher purpose and a higher obligation as healthcare communicators, particularly in the cancer realm. I think we need to be that voice, those ears, and really, it's about empathy at the end of the day. I know that, as a patient, you hate to hear somebody say to you, "I know how you're feeling." No, you don't know how I'm feeling. You can't know how I'm feeling. But I think if we can at least prioritize the patient in a way that helps us ask the right questions, take the time to really listen and feel, and I think that can help us craft and communicate in a way that is thoughtful and meaningful, and something that even amid the emotions and the trauma of dealing with a cancer diagnosis, you can benefit from. And I think at the end of the day, that's what's so important. Any last tips you want to share in terms of what 1 or 2 things we should think about as we develop communications with the patient in mind?
Yeah, I would say, and just from my experience, I've had really the privilege to get to know so many people living with cancer, and just remembering that they are people first before they are cancer patients. And their lives have been turned upside down really by no fault of their own. So when you're crafting these communications, have empathy. Try as best as you can to understand what they're going through, and do that by listening to them, and forming real connections.
I love that. So thank you for that, Whitney. And I invite all of you to please join the conversation. It's an important one, and we need to be engaged in it. And please feel free to comment or join in other ways. I thank you for listening. Thanks, Whitney, for your partnership along the way, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day.